Hello and welcome to the Alexandra Wenman Show. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to one of my dearest friends. And if you've seen the show for a while, she probably needs no introduction. Lorraine Flaherty, who is a transformational therapist and occasional time-traveling troubleshooter. And there's no tongue twister there. Welcome to the show, Laurie. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Obviously, just for our viewers, Lorraine has very kindly agreed to be a speaker at the Alchymystic event that I'm running in November with lovely Colin Holland. So this is part of our alchemystic themed series of interviews. But before we delve into what you're going to be talking about at the conference, I'd really love you to just explain to viewers what it is you do, and aside from time traveling troubleshooting.
So it's quite hard to put it into a nutshell, but I guess it's working with the subconscious data that each human being carries within them to look for what I call glitches, and whether that's beliefs, whether it's limiting mindsets, whether it's trauma from the past, all those things that catch people out and prevent them because of fears or anxieties from really being able to live their life fully. So getting caught up in the loops of negative thinking, or just those beliefs that either they're not good enough or they don't deserve good things, which sometimes people aren't even consciously aware of, but they find themselves stuck in life and not being able to really go for their dreams or the things that they want. And without that conscious awareness, it's very difficult to actually change it. So by getting people to access the deep inner wisdom that exists within them using hypnosis, we can find answers. So it's a bit like being a detective, or a bit like being I think I've joked about somebody once referring to me as a mental archaeologist. And I'm not sure if he was saying that I was mental or that I was just rummaging.
Mental archaeologist.
through people's historical stuff to find the stuff that's broken, but also, well, not broken, but the stuff that's causing problems, but also to find the buried treasure that's in there, because there's loads of wonderful resources in there as well that you can bring to the surface and utilize.
I love this. It suits you so much as a purpose and as a career, because you've always been this curious, question asking person, haven't you? How did it all start for you?
At a very early age, I was that really annoying why kid, but the why didn't just stop to, the mundane things. It was, why are we here, and why do people behave like that, and why is the world operating the way that it does? Why do we have war? Why aren't people kind to each other? Why do we have limited perceptions of who we are as human beings, and what happens when we die? And why is it that some people can see the people that they've lost and some people can't? And why don't people understand that we are infinite beings who definitely have more than one existence? And why can I remember other lifetimes and memories of things that went on before, which people tried to convince me was just my imagination? But I do have a vivid imagination, but there was definitely stuff that came to me that was beyond any kind of rational sense of it being a made up thing. And especially when I would read things later after having visions or dreams, or in meditation, stuff would come up, and what I'd seen would be completely clarified. I would get proof and evidence this stuff was real. So yeah, wanting to understand the bigger picture, it's been a lifelong quest, really. And that really insatiable desire to know more meant that when I started my hypnotherapy training and practice, because I realized this was a means by which I could actually get into the hidden wisdom inside, the process of kind of analytical hypnotherapy and the sort of regression tools, which enabled you to go back in time, whether it was to childhood memories or whether it was to other lifetimes, was such a fantastic way of getting answers, way beyond the just sort of standard. And again, there's nothing wrong with standard hypnosis where people are put into a trance state and given commands and suggestions to make changes. But I just wanted to know why. Why have you got that problem in the first place? Where did it come from? What started it? What was the origin of it? And if we understand that, then you've got a much better chance of being able to release it and let it go. What was the purpose behind everything? So yeah, that's been the lifelong search.
I love it. What I love about you is how multifaceted your approach is. And I mean, you have done everything from teaching hypnosis to medical students and midwives to really, really going into the multidimensional sphere. And it's that multifaceted side of things that I'd love to delve into now. I mean, you've probably seen everything from the weird to the wonderful. And yet you have the kind of the academic side as well, which is just so great. So what's some of the weirdest stuff that's come up for you? Obviously, I know some of this, but
yeah, I mean, I guess the weirdest stuff would be, the hundreds of other lifetimes that I've remembered, sometimes in hypnosis, sometimes spontaneously and I know you and I have experienced this, where you go and visit a location and suddenly it's like an overlay of a memory where you're almost in the two places at once, where there's almost a physiology of being there and having different clothes on, and then remembering almost a whole story playing out, and then going back and researching stuff and finding out that it was all historically true. That's, sort of goosebump moments. To having practiced it a lot, finding that actually it almost became frustrating, because I would try and do meditation to rest and go into silence, and there I would be in contemplation and just in my Zen state, and then off I would go into an effective wormhole in my mind, and it would say, oh no, not again, and then then just pop into yet another lifetime, and they're not always delightful, they're not always pleasurable. A lot of the time when you're doing it therapeutically, you go into lifetimes where you were hard done by, or it's quite often where you're the victim to resolve the sort of weaknesses that may have erupted in that. But and again, I know we've both kind of experienced that once you've started to sift through and heal all of those ones, actually I quite often end up in the lifetimes as the perpetrator, where I'm the bad guy. And
what about the one that we shared in Peru? Like the one thing I don't know if we've spoken about it on here, but to the viewers, like Lorraine and I have had many shared past lives actually, and without any evidence, without sharing any, no prior knowledge, and simultaneous, spontaneous memories, haven't we, in various places?
We have. And also, even though I'm so deeply embedded in this work, as you know, I'm still a skeptic, and I still want evidence, and I still want proof that it isn't just my imagination that's running away with me. And so the Peru one was really powerful because you had a vision of stuff. I think it was the night. Did you have a dream the night before?
The night before, about 4 o'clock in the morning, I think.
Yeah. So you'd shared that you had a memory of something quite profound happening up at Machu Picchu. And to be fair, I hadn't even really wanted to go there, had I?
I dragged you there
because I thought it was too touristy. So I was quite happy to just go off on our trip with the shamans that we were meeting. I was like, oh, we don't need to do that. But obviously, time opened up, and so we thought, well, we'll go. And then we were on the bus going up the hill, or the mountain, up to the city up there. And as we were travelling up, I dropped into a memory. And I know that my logical mind was saying, oh, maybe I just want to be involved in your story. I'm kind of remembering it as though I was in it too. Maybe that's just wishful thinking. I don't want to miss out. We always do this stuff together. So I was kind of going along with it, but not really believing it. And in the lifetime, I mean, you know me, I can tell a long tale. I'll try and keep the story short.
I think we should tell the story, because this is something You can't make up.
No.
Should I tell my bit and then you
tell your bit and then and then I'll tell my bit.
So often we do get quite a lot of detail in these past life memories. It does present like an ordinary memory, doesn't it? Albeit a little bit hazier, but it does feel, you can feel the sensations, you can smell the smells, you remember what it was like when you were there, often remember what you were wearing. But when I was woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I had been this woman who had been punished for stealing some grain. And what they did as my punishment was that they cut off both my hands, and then they hung me in like a net made of vines over a cliff edge, which was at Machu Picchu. And I was basically told, if you can climb out, you can live. And I had no hands and was bleeding all over the place. I mean, these details are so specific. I mean, who in their right mind would imagine something like that?
Exactly.
And it was just so vivid. And I remember, and I have a fundamental fear of heights in this life, as I think you do, don't you? I think we both have the fear of heights. And I remember, like, I was trying to sort of like arm over arm, like backwards on the rope. And I made it to the edge of the cliff. I made it, but then because I didn't have any hands, I was literally just scrabbling in the dust, and I just slipped over the edge and fell to my death. And I think this is where your bit came in, isn't it?
So I have the realization that in the time frame that we were in, we were brother and sister, and I had the responsibility of being effectively the keeper of the grain. I had quite a significant role in the society, and it was my job to look after all of the sort of the food and the resources that we had as a community. But I was also very intuitive and quite psychic. So I had seen a vision that in the next few years coming up, the next 4 to 5 years, that things were going to get really tough and that there was going to be a bit of a famine. So
you are, Joseph?
But I needed to ration the grain. I needed to sort of, instead of just throwing it out to everybody, I just had to make the portion smaller to make it last. And I kind of made an executive decision to not freak people out. I didn't want people to know that this was going to be a problem and that we were in for a really hard time coming up. So I didn't say anything, which I probably should. It would have probably made it a lot easier. So a lot of people thought that I was just being mean. They thought I was just being tight with the grain, that I just, wasn't giving people enough because I don't know whether they thought I was greedy, I was keeping it for myself or something. And you, as my sister, had the same thought. You thought, oh, I was just being overly cautious and I was being crazy. And being my sister and thinking that you would not get in trouble because you're my sister, you just went in and took some extra for you and your family. And you got caught. And the other leaders who had various different roles were also fed up with me. They thought I was too strict. So they would do anything to get rid of me. So they saw this as a perfect opportunity, because they said to me, okay, well, she's been caught, and just because she's your sister, she's not going to get, favourable treatment. She's going to get the same punishment that anybody else who was caught in that situation would. And if you try and change that, if you try to alter what happens, it will be evidence and proof that you're not worthy of being the leader, and therefore we will oust you and we'll put somebody else in that position. And I knew...
All for a bit of grain.
All for a bit of grain. But I knew that if that happened, the whole community would die. So I was stuck in this horrendous position of choosing them, the sort of greater good, over you, my sister, who I loved with all my heart.
I forgive you.
Thank you. So I ended up at that ceremony where there you are, hands cut off and scrabbling, watching an absolute horror and being unable to do anything about it. And after you had fallen, your husband couldn't bear it and he threw himself down over the cliff after you, leaving your young son. And I was the only member of family that he had left, which meant that I had to take on the responsibility of his care. And of course, he hated my guts. because all he sees as a boy is that you didn't protect my mum, your sister. Why didn't you? And I think pride, fear, wanting to desperately protect everybody, I just shut down. I just didn't tell anybody anything, but I made my full commitment to the boy to give him everything and to train him up so that he could be a responsible person and use, you know, his natural abilities to take over from me when I went. I was determined to hold that position. So the guilt and the sorrow that I felt was absolutely huge. So I was crying going up there anyway. And you know me, I'm not a crier. And then we got to Machu Picchu, and of course you get to the site and the signposts say turn left. So everybody starts walking up and left. And of course, Al and I, anybody that knows us will know that whatever they tell us to do, we're always going to do the opposite anyway. So we go right. And right takes you down. We didn't even realise right takes you down and along the sort of cliff edge, as it were, along the bottom part. And you had wandered off ahead of me. And at a certain point, as we're walking along, I suddenly feel absolutely sick, like I'm going to throw up, because I know that I'm standing at the exact spot where it happened. So this little voice in my head says, well, Al hasn't noticed.
Hasn't she?
She hasn't noticed. She's just walked straight past this bit. So she would know if this was the right spot. So maybe I'm making it up. Maybe I am making it up. Maybe this was wishful thinking. At which point, just as I'm having that thought, Al turns around, and as she turns to me, she's like, and turns around and points to the exact spot that I'm standing on. It happened there. That was where the basket was.
I just love your impression of me, because that's exactly what it is. It's projectile tears, like uncontrolled.
It was projectile tears.
And it's everywhere we go. We've had this in Egypt. We've had it in France. I'm always like, she's just
I don't normally cry at all. I don't normally get emotional. Anyway, for the next one, so we sat on the spot where it happened, and then when I tuned in a little bit more and connected from a higher perspective, it turned out that actually, wasn't it that it was our soul energy that had split?
Yeah,
into like lots. It was like a huge big test.
Parts. Yeah,
to see if I would be prepared to sacrifice my feelings for the greater good. That was what the soul contract was. And obviously I'd done it, so I'd ticked the box. And I think, I can't remember if we must have it written down somewhere, whether the child was also part of my soul energy and the husband was also part of your soul energy.
Yeah, I think the four was part of each of us.
Yeah, to do like a double whammy on it, and to really like hit home all the different perspectives of it. And it was extraordinary, because we were able to, I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And you forgave me. And then we called the child in, and I'm really sorry. And he forgave me. And then the husband. And there was this just massive, great big loving that happened. And it was hilarious, because we thought that, well, I thought I'd gone to Peru to do the work with the shamans. And after we'd exhausted, we'd had this massive, great big healing session. It was like, oh,
I think we're done.
This is why we came to Peru, which was just as well, because unfortunately the shamanic experience, which we won't go into here, wasn't quite what we were hoping it was going to be. It was definitely really not.
So always be discerning about who you go to.
Be very discerning. Should you go to South America, to Peru, the people there are utterly beautiful. The place is incredible, but just choose very wisely who you go out there to do stuff with. But yeah, so that was pretty surreal.
That's just one of many that we have. And you know, that kind of leads me to Alchymystic the event and what you can expect to experience with Lorraine guiding you, because as part of your talk you're going to lead people through a process, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm doing 2 talks. So one is about the sort of therapeutic alchemy of hypnosis, because hypnosis doesn't always get the kind of kudos that it deserves, really. It's been so kind of relegated into the realms of entertainment and control, and sort of it just gets a really bad rap. You know, it's seen as something that bad people do to control people. And I'm very passionate about actually bringing the truth to light about how extraordinary hypnosis is and what an incredible tool it is that we can use. You know, our minds are probably the most powerful tools that we have, and not at any point are we taught how to use it. And because hypnosis enables you to access realms that you can't get to consciously, and it's the realm of memory, emotion, creativity, intuition, imagination. And when you combine all of those forces together, it is incredibly powerful. So I'm going to be sharing some really simple, really easy techniques that people can use to get in there and show them what they can do when they're in there for themselves. Because self-hypnosis is, again, it's such an enjoyable, wonderful process to do, and it's so good for you physiologically, mentally, emotionally, on every level. It provides benefits. I mean, just as an example, you know, there were research studies done with people with IBS, and really the medical world is still in a conundrum about IBS. They still don't really know what it is, and there's still not really any kind of treatments that can resolve it. But a test study where people did self-hypnosis for 12 weeks with no specific suggestions or nothing really said other than just going into that state and being in deep relaxation. And it, for some of the people, for the majority of the people in the trial, it eliminated their symptoms of IBS completely. Gone. But I'm also going to be taking people on a little journey through time and space. And yay! And really what we're going to be looking at is exploring the future.
Oh, we're going to do future. Fantastic.
So looking at means by which you can get clarity, you can get focus, and you can move forward without that cycle of, do I do this? Do I do that? Is this right? Is that right? So there's a really simple process that means that you can kind of try before you buy, if you like. And I've adapted the process so that there's a little bit of a healing step first, because I've realized that most people who have a dream or a vision, if you're not making it happen, it's because there's something stopping you. There's usually something holding you back, preventing you, whether it is one of those beliefs, whether it is a fear or something that's potentially been passed down through generations. You know, we passed down from parents, grandparents, right the way back through the ancestral line. So there's a means by which we can heal some of those fears, transcend them, and then look at what potentials there are in the future, so that you can go, yeah, you know what? That one feels perfect. That feels really good. I'm going to do that. And it's extraordinary what people are able to achieve when they have that kind of laser pinpoint focus, bit like the sun, as we're all, you know, everyone's experiencing different degrees of heat in the heat waves that have been happening around the world. But actually, you harness that power in a magnifying glass, and you know it burns through whatever is there. So clarity, purpose, focus, they're all things that can be achieved whilst in that state.
It's like laser point focus right onto what you need, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I have to say, having worked with Lorraine for years and years now, and I mean, many a session, I think the longest one we did together was you put me under for about 10 hours, which probably felt at the time like about 30 minutes. I think we couldn't believe it when we came out, broke for lunch, I think halfway through, and then went back in, didn't we?
Yeah. Epic.
I'm quite happy in those realms, so I didn't mind. But I mean,
yeah.
for those of you, you know, like I don't think there's ever been a person that's worked with you that hasn't been able to go into that state of hypnosis. You're very good at what you do. And, you know, people will often say, you know, it feels like they're making it up, but you can't. How can you possibly come up with the information that is held in the subconscious? I mean, when we've gone back afterwards, we've checked dates and names and things, and it's all been completely accurate. It's immense.
Yeah, absolutely. And because there's a very fine line in that realm, you know, it is the seat of the memories, and it is the realm of imagination. So it's quite hard for the logical mind sometimes to process the information in a way that feels okay, because the two things are so similar. And so logical mind will quite often, as a fail-safe, go, oh, well, you must just be making it up. How could you possibly know what was happening in Peru in, whatever century it was, or Victorian England, or whatever? It's got to be your imagination. And one of the key things that I tell people when I'm working with them is just stay in a state of curiosity. Just allow the information to unfold, and promise your logical mind that you'll question it and pull it apart at the end, but let the information come up. Because if you resist it or go into that fear, then it will stop it from unfolding. And when people give themselves permission to do that, I mean, it is just incredible what comes up.
It's amazing. I think a great resource, if you want to know more about how Lorraine does this work and the evidence, the unbelievable evidence that she's found, she actually does have a book, and it's Healing with Past Life Therapy.
I actually have a copy of it here.
You've got it here. Excellent. Transformational Journeys Through Time and Space. So there's your time traveling troubleshooter. But it's the most fantastic book. I love how you wrote it, because we talk about you being curious and the self-inquiry and the constantly asking questions. I love you formatted the book like that. It's like, if people were to have questions about this, what would they ask? And you've literally answered every single question and more. I just love it. I mean, when I was reading your book, it's like so delightfully laid out, and your mind is blown by the case studies that you have. I mean, how many years have you been doing this for now?
Oh, it's coming up for 22 years.
Wow.
Officially, but obviously there was another 20 of exploring psychic development and healing and psychology and, all of that stuff, various different realms, meditation of all different types. So, it's over 40 years worth now of accumulated knowledge and practice. And
well, I mean, you eat it, sleep it, breathe it, live it, embody it. That's why we love each other so much, I think. Why would you not? But honestly, I mean, this woman, I mean, we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but I'm trying to keep these ones fairly short. But I know she'll be back on here again soon. We will have another chat on here. We'll always have more chats on here. And if you want to catch more of Lorraine in action, there are some videos on here of us, doing our thing and going around the planet and experiencing the, Mary Magdalene's land in Rennes-le-Chateau. And we've been all videos of Joshua Tree and Egypt, and we've been on many an adventure. In fact, I haven't even put up all the videos of all our adventures, but lockdown was hard for us.
It was. It could be time to hit the road again soon, I think.
Definitely. 100%. I wonder where. Oh, that's wonderful, honey. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to tell people before we finish up?
No, just that I think Alchymystic is going to be a really fantastic event. The speakers are amazing. We had a group Zoom call with everybody, and just listening to people's stories and what they were going to be sharing. I mean, I felt very humbled to be a part of such a beautiful group of souls that were sharing very deeply from their heart, and they're all really committed to what they're doing. There's no ego involved whatsoever. It's just heartfelt, wanting to make a difference, and people sharing their own journeys, their own struggles, their own experiences to help others to get to that place where they're healed. The healing journey is ongoing. It never ends, really. We're all constantly learning. I'm still seeking. I'm still looking for answers. I'm still, trying to fix me, the world, whatever you can. And you know what I mean, not fixed. No one, nothing is broken, but just evolving to different realms. So as a 2-day event in Glastonbury, which is, probably the epicenter of spirituality in the UK anyway, you can't get a higher vibration of energy. And I just think that people should take the time to be at the event and just see where it takes them. see what they learn. And I think it will be very, very magical.
I think we're going to open a huge portal of love. We're doing some really good work, I think, just by the intention of coming together in love. I think it's going to be really immense. And it keeps unfolding and blossoming into more and more and more amazing stuff, like the things that we're going to have there. There's every day we're adding new bits to the website. So, and that will all be unveiled through these videos as we go along. We've got some amazing guests coming, so I'm excited. So, and it'll be, if nothing else, it's an amazing opportunity to come and have a hug and a love in and and have a good time together.
Now that we're allowed to.
Now that we're allowed to, exactly. Oh, thank you so much, honey. And I just want to remind people, Lorraine's website, it's innerjourneys.co.uk. Am I right?
Yeah.
Innerjourneys.co.uk, and you can find everything about Lorraine there. And I'll pop all the links below the video, and come along and see us in person if you can, 5th and 6th of November. Thank you, Laurie, for being here, honey. And
thanks for having me.
I will see you very soon. Thank you.